Welcome to The Future Starts With You, where we talk about career readiness initiatives in the space where they actually happen, on campuses at school. Today, we are at Oceanside High School recording interviews with some students who are both current students and alumni of Oceanside High. We're excited to see a little bit about what the future holds. I am thrilled to be here at Oceanside High talking to a couple of students who survived high school, moved on, and are back to kind of share their expertise with the students here at OHS. So welcome, I'm really excited. So today I have Alec and I have Juan Pablo Garcia Torres with me. So Alec, if you want to kick us off and tell us a little bit about where are you now?
Yeah, so I graduated high school in 2021, and immediately I went to Maricosta, basically just to kind of figure out where I wanted to take, my education and what kind of career path I wanted to go down. And that ended up being in communications. And so, yeah, these days I'm about to finish up my final semester at Maricosta. So hopefully I'll be able to transfer to a 4-year pretty soon.
Fantastic, thank you. All right. Juan, give us a little bit about yourself.
Well, a little bit about me is that I just graduated a couple months ago, like at the end of last year. And right after graduating, when the semester started for school, I was helping out by teaching at EC through Media Makerz. I was teaching sound design and audio.
Can you give me, what does EC mean?
El Camino High School.
Ah, perfect, great. The sister high school
Yeah.
to Oceanside, yep.
Yeah, so I was teaching over there along with Miss Hardcastle. I was in her class helping some of her students learn some sound design. And then from there, I guess I've just been at Maricosta doing some graphic design classes.
Perfect, all right. So when you were at Oceanside High, what kind of courses did you take or programs were you part of that you feel like maybe you could leverage into what you're doing now?
So while I was at OHS, I was a part of the digital media and arts pathway. So I took graphic design, I took photography, and I believe it was broadcasting. I'm not completely sure, but yeah. Throughout those years, I learned many skills that helped me be where I am now. Immediately from the time Mr. Parks, or Coach P as we like to call him, entered into being my teacher. He picked me up out of a 3D animation class to where I went and helped him at the studio with a client right off the bat to just do some work.
Perfect. All right, how about yourself?
So when I graduated back in 2021, even though it was only a couple years before Juan, there wasn't as many outlets that kind of stress the importance of this new age of digital media. And so back then I was taking a lot of classes that had to do with arts, but mainly pencil and paper. And so I've always been interested in that kind of realm, just kind of the arts and, visual media. And so, I eventually ended up taking graphic design too. So I had a little bit of experience with that. And so it did help me a little bit. But it was really when I got into Media Makerz that really started to help hone my skills.
So skills is a really important component of kind of career readiness. So tell me, what are some of the skills that have come in handy the most, and where did you learn them along the way?
So for me, I think some of the most handy skills from my kind of position, I think, is a lot of being good at communicating with different people. And
What?
so,
A communications
I know,
major
right?
needs to
So,
be good at
like,
communicating? That's
I
wild.
probably should be. But yeah, so I've definitely had to utilize those skills a little bit, just talking with different types of people, different, hierarchies of people and different positions that I have to communicate with. And so I think I've definitely learned to utilize those to the maximum. And I think I'm doing pretty good.
Great. What about technical skills? Are there any specific programs you learned or maybe camera techniques that have been helpful along the way?
So this question might be better for Juan because
well, let's pass
he's
it
a lot
over.
more
That's
tech savvy
perfect.
than I
Give me
am.
the behind the scenes technical side. What skills have been most helpful in your journey?
Well, recently, I'm trying to film a sort of documentary thing for Media Makerz. And the skills that have been handy there were, lighting, because, lighting's everywhere.
Yeah.
It's a prime example is what we're sitting in right now. And then let's say editing. A lot of editing that comes in handy a lot, especially when it comes to like coloring or transitions so that the video doesn't become boring. And I recently learned a lot about sound design. So just being able to mix sound, able to create sound effects, all of that comes in handy in this entire like career.
If you could make up a project that you think would prepare someone for kind of where you are so far, if you could tell a high school teacher, like, oh, you should do this, what would you do? What would you tell them to do?
Um, I think if I had to give advice to like that kind of sort of teacher, maybe to better prepare like, their students, I think just maybe giving them the perspective of the work ethic that you maybe have to put in that's very different outside of high school, because high school, like you do have the possibility of being able to kind of cruise through, not really having to study too hard if you have the brains like that. But outside of high school, it's a whole different ballgame that I've learned and that I've, experienced. So I think a good kind of just thing for the teachers to, just remind the students is that it's very different out there. And so you need to be able to adjust.
Yeah, flexibility is huge
Very.
anytime. But you do have a little bit more structure in high school, right? And then you leave and there's no structure and you have to figure it out on your own.
For sure. Yeah, it's difficult.
Yeah. What would
You have
be your
no idea,
advice
yeah.
then to a high school teacher?
All right, so talking from personal experience because of the sound design classes that I taught, my personal advice to teachers would be to be comprehensive, that some students might not pick up things the same way, so you might have to teach it in a more fun or interactive way than if you would to teach a different student that just picks everything up like it's nothing. Just be flexible with every student, have different teaching methods for different students. And yeah, that's about it.
I am wondering what has surprised you the most since you graduated high school?
Oh, sorry. So for me, I pretty much joined, I guess you would say like the workforce. Right out of high school, I started working at Walmart actually. And so I worked from like 2 p.m. to 11 p.m. It was kind of like not the best hours, obviously, for a college student. And
It
so,
might be the best because you can't get into as much trouble.
yeah, that's another good point. Like that probably did keep me, out of trouble, just being constantly working or that's on classes or stuff. But yeah, I think just having to maintain a balance of everything. It can get fairly difficult to just try and keep a hold on everything, whether that's your priorities at home, whether that's, work, school. It can get difficult. So yeah, I think just out of high school, I think that was one of the biggest surprises, just how much it can all be.
Yeah. And I mean, we don't talk as much about it's like, oh, go to this school and then you get a career. But along the way, we all had wiggly career paths. I worked at SeaWorld and did tours and things like that right out of college, or those kinds of things where you're still trying to find what's next, and yet you have bills to pay as soon as you graduate high school usually. What has surprised you as you've entered the workforce, even though you've only been in it for about a year?
Well, for me, entering the workforce was like right out of high school. Like right away, I went into working with Mr. Parks at Media Makerz, creating videos for different people. Over the summer was the most surprising thing when we went to Sequan. Went to Sequan and we filmed a marathon over on a giant mountain. It was scorching hot, but it was amazingly fun. And that was the most surprising thing I think I've experienced after high school.
Now, do you have some peers who didn't take any classes like this? Some other people that you graduated with them, they didn't take any kind of future-ready careers. How do you see your current situation being different from theirs?
So I think I had a lot of friends who weren't as interested in the same like stuff that I was interested in, and so they kind of went on their own path, like finding what kind of spoke to them. And I think they were at a little bit of a disadvantage just because, they didn't really seek out anything that spoke to them and that, maybe something that they're passionate about. Where, for me in my situation, this whole, production crew and everything that is involved with it is kind of something that I am passionate about. And so, just this whole method of creating, these things that people are going to see for a long time. So I think that definitely set me up better.
When you just graduated in 2023, so that you haven't seen everyone's trajectory around you, but do you have, it seems like you were very clear. You had these experiences and you went straight into, working in this realm. Do you have friends who are still, didn't have that kind of a scenario?
Well, yeah, I have a couple who instead of like going straight into something, they took a break from college. So like right now they're just taking a break, not doing anything
Are they
really.
working?
From my knowledge, I think so at like retail stores like Walmart, Target, places like that. Some of them are working at Baskin Robbins and places like that. No one really has a clear trajectory.
Yeah, I think for me, like when I went to college, it was hard to know where I was going to use all of the information. And then eventually I went back and got my master's degree. And at the time I was a chemistry teacher and I was pharmaceutical chemistry. And that's like a hard degree. And I was like, this is so interesting. And I know exactly what I'm going to do with it. So it really makes a difference when you have education that you immediately know what you're going to do with it. And it sounds like both of you have found your way into that kind of a scenario. Yeah. All right. So if you could tell any students what it was like, what would you tell them, or what advice would you give to a future student?
I think to any future student who is about to graduate high school, I think one piece of advice I'd probably give to pretty much everyone is kind of what I said before, is don't be afraid to seek out like what you're passionate about. And I just say that because from my experience, from what I've heard from, my family members and like people who have given me advice, is that a lot of people kind of regret not going after what they're truly passionate about yet. And, they kind of just want to go straight to the, cookie cutter, maybe like life that maybe they thought they needed. And so I've talked to a lot of people and they said, like, take that time to go after what you're passionate about. And because maybe that could lead to an outlet that could, serve as a career.
Well, to me, it's more or less don't stop your imagination. Because most people right out of high school, or maybe even before leaving high school, will just immediately drop their imagination. So everything that they could have accomplished through imagination, through art, through anything that sort of involves it, just gets completely cut off. So I know some people that stopped having their imagination in around like middle school, who just ended up having the most boring time in high school because they just couldn't find anything fun to do. The people that I know that kept their imagination were in like art classes, having fun drawing, sketching, doing everything they wanted. And some of them actually went on to do art for money. So the main point is just don't kill off your imagination.
I love that. A lot of times, even as we're talking about education, kindergartners show up with more inquiry and imagination, and we standardize test all of that out of them in the course of many years. And so I really am glad that you're finding opportunities to use your imagination and your creativity. And so as you're looking forward, then it sounds like that's one of the things that's important to you in a job. But I'm wondering, to you, what makes a job a good job?
I think obviously that question is pretty subjective, just to everyone.
Well, yeah, it's what makes a job a good job for you.
Yeah, so
it's different than mine,
from my
for sure.
subjective, I think for me, I'd say a good job is just something that you can go in and day out, and that you can come home and say that, you genuinely were proud of like what you did, and that, whether that was providing for your family or whether that's, having a big breakthrough in whatever you're working on, I think that a good job just really supports that, and like it gives you that little burst of dopamine,
Yeah.
So for me, a good job would, although this sounds a little corny, would be Media Makerz, because they have one of the best like working environments that I've been in.
Mm-hmm.
So like as you said earlier with Cat and Ant, the music, we constantly or constantly listen to music while working. However, we still get our stuff done.
Mm-hmm.
So no one really gets bored because we're doing something we like at the same time as listening to something we like or watching something we like. Just anything that will make you feel happy at the end of the day. At the end of the day, everything relies on your happiness, your mood, and your ability or want to actually work. So anything that just makes you want to do it, that's what I would say is a good job to you.
All right. Off question. What is a piece of media that inspires you?
Piece of media.
Like, Media Makerz, right? Like what
Okay.
kind of thing that
Yeah.
you might one day want to do? What have you seen that inspires you to want to do something similar?
So our Media Makerz crew actually went
Oh, it
on.
cannot be part of Media Makerz. It needs to be something in the outside.
Oh, okay.
Like,
Okay.
is there a movie? Is there
Oh, okay, I understand the question now. Okay.
a podcast? I know it's probably
Yeah.
my podcast, but
Well, I watch
like
that every day.
So yes,
yeah.
absolutely. So I
Yeah.
guess maybe the better question is, what's your inspiration?
I think for me, my inspiration would honestly be my family, just because I have a lot of people, like that, not necessarily count on me, but a lot of people expect like a lot from me just because, they've seen what I can do and they've seen like my potential. And so I definitely think that pushes me into, being the best version of myself. And so I think that definitely is a very important aspect of, who I am in my life.
As for me, my inspiration is mainly like movies, such as Star Wars, because of these
Yes.
special effects with a lightsaber. I really want to learn how to do that, and I am actually studying how to do that on my own.
I have a lightsaber, so I can bring it and you can practice turning it into
Might take you up on that.
Yes,
offer,
no,
honestly,
I'm
so.
actually quite serious.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But yeah, so movies like Star Wars, and then there's Avengers, and there's anything that has to do with some sort of really cool high-tech animation. So an example would be Iron Man's suit when he like presses the button and it just spreads all over his body. That's something I want to really learn how to make. Yeah, just mainly good movies and shows.
Well, that's kind of exciting because as you talk about what are the things that you have passion for in the world, a lot of times people talk about, oh, I love, movies and comics and things. But in this case, you can build a career where you're part of those industries, where you have opportunities there. San Diego is the home of Comic-Con, so we're going to see all of these, creators right here on stages nearby. And you could be the next one on that stage.
Hopefully.
Very likely. He's good. So.
All right. Well, I'm excited. And I mean, we didn't even talk about all of my fandoms, but I'm like a geek at heart. I co-chair the education committee for the Comic-Con Museum and work with them a lot. And so now I'm thinking about, all right, if we have anything in that space, I'm going to need to send you an invite to
Yeah,
come
that
and
sounds
hang
cool.
out and
For
check
sure.
out what's going on down there. Absolutely.
All
All right. Yes.
Sorry,
I
these
know.
are podcast people. Sorry.
Only if, you have to. He's been on the podcast.
Oh,
He has
yeah.
been.
Okay, well, we'll see.
We'll see.
Yeah.
So as the title of the podcast says, the future starts with you. And there's no more honest truth than me saying that to you as previous students as kind of the future of industry. So if the future starts with you, what are your hopes for the future, whether it's for yourself or kind of a bigger picture within your industry?
I think for me, my hope for the future is just to basically create something that, I can stick my name on at the end of the day and be very content and, be able to want to show that to people that I love, to be able to say that I'm the one who created this. And yeah, I think just also something that obviously like can support me, my family, and just, something that is manageable and also that I love doing.
Sounds amazing.
That'd be the dream. But,
Living the dream. That's
Yeah.
right. What does your future look like?
Well, for me, the future I hope I get is to continue with Media Makerz and help other students like myself learn and like and love the stuff that they do. I also want to be able to make something, as he said, that I can put my name on and say, yes, I made that. And I've gotten something similar to that with a photography thing that I did a couple years ago. But right now, I'm mainly just focusing on trying to make something good in the video world.
Well, I can't wait to see what the future holds for both of you. And I will be watching the credits on all future Marvel movies to see your name right there in among the many people that make those come to life. So thank you so much for joining me on The Future Starts With You.
Thank you.
And I look forward to seeing what the future holds.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of The Future Starts With You. If you have any questions, check out the show notes. You'll be able to see links to some of the programs that you learned about today and get a better understanding of some of the things we talked about. So for now, keep up the good work because the future starts with you.